Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining. Not gonna lie, it's looking like a rough day again. The market's trading a little bit lower heading into the trading day. We can see the SPY is lingering just under 462, and it closed yesterday right around 465. So we're definitely seeing at least a slight increase in selling pressure, and some stocks are definitely tanking down this morning. But across the board, there should be some good opportunities. Even if we do see a continued sell-off, there are some good setups to the downside. So we should have a good day. Tom, do you have any favorite setups you're watching? Any stocks? Anything?
Some of the bigger stocks that I was watching today were the banks. Yesterday banks did very well with Powell speaking the day before, and the banks actually closed up pretty high. And then this morning, I'll tell you, they're starting to pull back pretty drastically. So if you guys watched last night's video and you saw the banks going up, obviously they kind of double topped up here, and they're kind of coming back down now with the overall market. So I feel like it's going to be very interesting to watch these banks and see how they react today, because if they go up, I think that'll be a very good sign. But if they go down, it might show that the banks are starting to move down off of what Powell said, which would obviously be a pretty bad thing, I think, for the banks and just for everything, because banks are a pretty big, they have a pretty big influence on the overall market.
No doubt. All right, so the market is now open. It looks like we have a UPS leading the way to the upside, but they're not even popping that much. They're only up 1.3%. So Teladoc's looking decent as well. Teladoc's actually not looking too bad. There's actually a lot of buyers flocking in. Are you muted, Tom?
Yes, I am. It's moving right back to the upside, up 1.29%, looking pretty good. I will say I like Teladoc to the upside, Mike. We've been eyeing this one up for a long time, and unfortunately, they just keep moving to the downside. So hopefully they can get some movement here up at open. It looks like this candle is actually getting pretty volatile. Looks like it's kind of moving all over the place here, which is, kind of expected. Leading my watch list, Mike, I actually have Roblox up 1.4%. Looks like they're recovering up a little bit after that huge sell-off they've had ever since they fell from 140.
There we go. That one really, really pulled back, and it seems like a lot of these stocks that have been exploding over, especially over the past month or so, or the past 2 months, are really pulling back. Tom, check out AFRM. That one had an amazing run up. It was at highs of 177, right around there, and now it's at 95. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is, and this was actually the stock I was thinking of whenever you brought up the big pullbacks. I was thinking of AFRM, UPST, and stocks like that, and they're starting to pull back pretty drastically. It's just it's a pretty bad thing to see, but hopefully they start to pull back up soon. I think it'll create some good buying opportunities, and honestly, some of these companies are so low at this point that it's almost a good time to start averaging in.
Yeah, no doubt. Like you said, we have AFRM. We have SOFI, UPST. That's another huge one. And there's actually a lot of them out there. So keep that in mind. I know Teladoc's down big, Zoom's down big, but they're actually looking pretty good today. It looks like these COVID stocks, specifically Zoom and Teladoc, it looks like we're starting to see a little bit of buying pressure, which in my opinion is long overdue, especially on Zoom.
Yeah, I think it is especially overdue as well. And man, it's been really double bottoming around this 175 to 180 support. I think it looks really good. I know that you've loved Zoom for a long time, and it looks like it's finally double bottoming here. And I think that it's going to be a great time to finally get in here. Man, we've just been seeing such a big downtrend out of these COVID stocks, you could say. And it's just, I really hope to see them recover. I'm glad to see the double bottom going on. And if they're able to come up and break back up above 190 and then break up above $200, I think that Zoom will have a pretty good uptrend at that point, and it might go on a pretty nice move. So I definitely like it. Throw it on the radar. I feel like if we start to break these resistances, it's definitely going to have a big move. And whenever we look at the daily, there's some pretty big gaps to fill back to the upside. So I would definitely eye up around $200 to $300.
There we go. All right. So, yeah, leading the way today, we definitely have Zoom to the upside, but Johnson & Johnson's pulling back a little bit, and Rivian's actually tanking down. I really wanted to cover Rivian. So this one is down a decent amount today. It's down 12%, and the market's been open for 3 minutes. They are actually getting very, very close to an all-time low, we can say, or did they already breach it in pre-market? No, they're very close. So the all-time low is $95.20. So if they break below that, that will be big. But I feel like we all kind of, or at least I feel like I was kind of kind of hating on them when they were running up. Like I just didn't think they backed up their valuation at all. And then plus news came out recently about them like not hitting their production numbers. So I can definitely see this one fading off.
Yeah, I could too. I'm going to actually throw up the article really fast here. But man, this is a very big stock. Lots of people have been eyeing this one up. They have some really big investors, like I believe it's Ford and Amazon, I believe, are invested in them pretty heavily, which is awesome. Ford's a pretty big company in their own, and they've been actually running. But man, they actually said that they expected to fall a few hundred vehicles short of production, which is not good at all. Of course, we've been seeing these supply chain issues like they noted right here. Obviously other companies like Ford and GM have even been having, production problems, even though their stocks have been doing pretty good. But, there's still been these ongoing like chip delays and all that type of stuff going on. And it's just not good to see, that they're going to come short of their, of that production goal. Honestly, like I remember whenever they were running up, people kept saying that they had a lot of, they obviously had a lot of stuff already in the works that, they might actually be able to beat these goals. And it looks like they obviously weren't able to. A lot of people have been forecasting that they might not do this because, we've been seeing a lot of the other companies like Ford and GM report production slowdowns. And I figured that would honestly leak into Rivian, and it looks like it did. And man, Mike, that EPS came in at negative $12.21. It looks like they have a long way to go before they get profitable.
Can you go back to the article really quickly on CNBC? I just want to point something out. So we can see if we go all the way to the top where it says, okay, so it says Rivian said it expects to fall a few hundred vehicles short of its 2021 production target of 1,200 vehicles. It's not like they're a Tesla out here right now producing, hundreds of thousands of vehicles, or, Ford or GM or, Toyota or anything like that. Like, they have a production target of 1,200 vehicles, right? And if you're gonna fall a few hundred short, that's a pretty big difference. Like I know some people might just initially think, oh, it's only a few hundred vehicles, but when we're talking about a target of 1,200, like percentage wise, it's pretty decent. So I feel like it just goes to show that I feel like Rivian has a long way to go to back up their valuation. And like you pointed out, Tom, a negative 12.2 EPS right now. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, Hunter, that's a pretty crazy EPS. I mean, man, that's a really bad thing to see, honestly. And, if it was like negative like 1 or negative 5 or something, it might be a little bit more normal, but negative 12 is coming in pretty low. Like that shows that, like you said, Mike, they just have so little production. They just have so little money coming in that their EPS is just so low because they're just not, they're not having much revenue right now. Hopefully at the beginning of this next year, we can see production ramp up, and hopefully, because I don't know like exactly when they started producing these vehicles for the end of this year, but anytime you come short is bad. So we even see Tesla, like whenever they come short of even, like they might produce 150,000 and come like, 2,000 short. Sometimes their stock tanks on even that news. So, I'm definitely understanding why Rivian's down 12%. It's a huge loss there on that production. And, honestly, like for the next year, Mike, like I know Rivian, I thought had a lot of pre-orders for those trucks and stuff. Like that's going to be pretty bad for them, I think. Like if they obviously, like if those pre-orders aren't getting filled, that's going to discourage a lot of people from buying, I think.
Yep, we shall see. So looking at the market overall, Tom, how's like the SPY holding up so far?
Honestly, it's not doing very well. It looks like it actually fell below that low. Let's go look at it compared to earlier in the week, and it actually is starting to fall below that, almost that 460 support. We're getting very, very close here. We're the lowest that we've been all week so far, and I'll be honest, it's not looking good. Powell, I thought, was really going to make the market explode, and it looks like we just now broke below 460. We definitely turned around after he spoke. Like, man, I don't know what happened here, but definitely not good. I will say one thing that really worries me, Mike, is whenever I'm looking at the SPY on a 180-day, 1-hour chart, you can really tell how it like triple topped up here at the top, right around this 474 to 475 resistance. And it's just that's a pretty bad technical sign. And if we continue to fall below 460 today, I could see this sell-off getting pretty accelerated. Maybe not hitting 455 today, but easily next week I could see us hitting 455 or possibly lower.
Yeah, it's looking rough. Like a lot of there's just like a lot of selling pressure out there, and it's definitely not looking good. So with that being said, I just want to welcome everyone to the stream really quickly. So thank you guys so much for joining, and welcome George, Vicky, Jamie, Hunter, David, Spacely, Corbin, Bill, and yeah, Jesse. Thank you guys so much for joining. It's awesome to have you guys. Let us know what stocks you're watching, and we can definitely take a look at them. We have Corbin saying, "Good morning, guys. I feel like the SPY is going to be green next week unless they manipulate it with the new COVID variant." So, yeah, most of the time the market pops up, but we're definitely seeing a good amount of selling pressure right now, at least. So, I'm with you. Hopefully, it pops up. It'd be relieving to see.
Yeah, I really hope it at least ends the week green. That'll be a really good sign. There could be lots of stuff go on during the week, but hopefully it ends green. It looks like as of right now, the technicals aren't lining up too well, but that could always change. We might bounce off that 455 support and, get some nice momentum back to the upside. I honestly hope we see that because Mike, I don't know about you, but we're just continuing to see these stocks have some bad moves. Now I know DraftKings was moving up at open, but man, we're just continuing to see these growth stocks down here at the lows. We have DraftKings, we have CHPT, PLTR. Look at all these stocks turning around at open now, creating these huge moves back down. It's just not a good sign again. Unfortunately, I feel really bad for Lucid Motors, man. This stock has been getting destroyed. Over the past couple of weeks, this one started to really move down. And yeah, I'll be honest, Mike, we actually talked about this one being in a bearish flag or a dead cat bounce setup. I'll tell you, it actually broke right below that last night. And it's starting to move pretty big to the downside. So whoever found that setup, kudos to you because, man, that's a really good actually dead cat bounce / bearish flag. I thought it was setting up very well, and it looks like it actually moved right off the technical with a very good in a very good way. So sometimes these setups work out, sometimes they don't. But I will say in this specific case, it looks like a pretty good play to the downside.
There we go. So I know you mentioned growth stocks and falling and all that, and it definitely sucks. Is let's say the market's down 1%, some of these growth plays might be down 2 or 3%. But the good thing is that when the market pops up, these growth stocks might be up 2, 3, 4, maybe 5%. Sometimes in a day or even a week. So definitely sucks, but the uptrends are normally pretty good too.
Yeah, that's a good thing to say. It's not always bad like it's been for the past 3 months. Yeah, that's definitely right. When it starts to go, they'll start to fly, and sometimes sometimes you'll miss the boat with how quickly they go up too. If we go look at one stock I've been looking a lot at lately is CLX, which is Clorox. I know Hunter actually showed me this one because I've been liking Kraft Heinz, and man, Clorox has been on fire. He showed me it all the way back in September, and it's been on fire ever since. It's hit these lows. It's been moving up. It kind of left us all, in the kind of left everybody behind. It filled this gap to the upside, and of course you could enter now, but you'd be entering a little bit late. I think it's still pretty good, but in the end, though, you're not getting that. You're not getting in at the correct time. But I feel like that a lot of these stocks are just at perfect levels, like Zoom, Mike. I know we talk about this one a lot. I think they're just at such a great level. Even NIO, I think they're at a good level, even though they're starting to break support. I feel like eventually they're going to start to come up with these growth stocks. Same thing with DraftKings, even Snapchat and Twitter. I really like around these levels. So I don't know. I feel like that a lot of stocks are just beaten down, Mike. But like you said, I feel like they can recover up pretty quickly. So just, always keep that in mind because it might leave you behind at some point.
No doubt. Alrighty, so looking across the board, there's just still a decent amount of selling pressure. I'm trying to find some some good setups for us right now, for intraday. I'm doing a couple scans really quickly, but not seeing too much just yet. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's a slow day whenever I have Clorox and Kraft Heinz leading my watch list up 1%.
Right? Oh gosh, that's so true. It's all to the downside. We have Neo down 6%, Enphase down 6%, Square down 4%, but not too much movement to the upside. I guess you could say the banks are now moving down, but yeah, Neo's tanking.
Yeah, it really is. It's not a good sign at all. It's I don't know what happened today. We're just seeing such big pullbacks out of some of these stocks. And unfortunately with NEO, whenever I go look at the max daily chart, I mean, man, we've been honestly bouncing off this $30 support like nonstop for the past year. And I mean, this time, unfortunately, we fell below it, and it's not looking good, Mike. Like, I don't know how much lower we're going to go here, but I could see them possibly going down to like 20, possibly this support here, like right around 25. I think 25 will probably be the first level to look at. So definitely eye that up. But man, it's just not good. Like these China stocks are also in the red. And that just makes it like double bad for NIO. The growth stocks are down, the China stocks are down. It's not a good sign for them. I don't know how much further they're going to go, Mike. I mean, I like them for the long term, and I feel like over the next few years they'll be back up to 40 or possibly even way higher. But for the next 6 months to a year, it's just I don't know how big of a downtrend they're going to go on, especially with the China stock.
Yeah. Speaking of like downtrends, we have actually, let's see. I mean, the banks are actually really taking a hit today, and even some of these other like automakers are taking a hit. So we have Neo down big, we have Rivian down big, we have Lucid down big, and then we have GM down big. Like even General Motors is struggling, and I assume Tesla's down too. Let's see, Tesla's down slightly, but it just goes to show you that like some of these like a lot of these automakers are struggling lately, like GM, Ford, Lucid, and Rivian, and Neo.
Yeah, they are. And, it's not like they've been struggling for, like forever, but like for the past couple weeks, I mean, man, like you can see Ford, they've just been so up and down around $20. And, they've had a lot of good news. And you can see General Motors is kind of triple topping around like 65. It's just not looking good.
Yep. Right. So, Tom, with the market falling, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to like short all the stocks we talked about, but then again, there's the VXX, and how's that looking?
Yeah, this one's actually looking pretty good, I will say. I know a lot of people have been eyeing up the VXX around that $20 support, and man, it honestly hit that again and bounced back up, which is great. Looks like we're back up above $22. I'll say this one looks pretty good, Mike. If we see the SPY continue down like we're seeing, like honestly, we just broke a huge support at 460. In my opinion, I think we'll see a continued sell-off today. But whenever I'm looking at the VXX based on this, I could definitely see it popping up. And I'm not saying it's going to go all the way back up to $30 or back up to $29 or anything, but I could definitely see it popping up, possibly to this resistance again around $23, possibly by the end of day today. And, if we see the SPY go on a drastic sell-off, this one might get a pretty good move. It's already up 4%, but there's been tons of times where this stock has been up like 10% in a day.
Yep. All right, and then we have Irankel saying, audio is excellent. Thank you for fixing the problem. Of course, thanks for pointing it out yesterday. And then we have Keith saying, should I day trade my 455 SPY puts or hold over the weekend? So it depends on the expiration. So it's really hard to answer that question without an expiration because that plays a huge role. But with that being said, it also depends on your risk tolerance. Like, did you get into the SPY puts to hedge your portfolio? If that's the case, you might want to hold over the weekend. Or did you get into the SPY puts just for like a quick short-term speculative trade? If that's the case, you might want to lock in profits. So keep that in mind. Also, if like the expiration is on Monday, then maybe lock in profits now. But if the expiration is like, maybe towards the end of December, feel free to hold. So there's a lot of variables that come into place, but it never hurts locking in profits, especially like when the market has moved basically straight down recently.
Yeah, and if you do have more than one contract, you could always maybe lock in like half or maybe lock in like 75% of the position and then only always hold just a little bit more just in case it does keep going down. That's always another way to play it. And, honestly, I feel like the SPY, it is popping back up through 460 right now, of course, but I feel like with the way we've been moving, it's definitely had a lot of selling pressure. So I think there's a good chance it will continue down, but, we'll have to see. The market generally likes to go up. So hopefully it recovers, but, just from based off what I'm seeing, I could see it continuing down, but, that doesn't mean it's going to happen for sure. And Mike, I'll tell you what, we actually have Tesla coming back up into the green today. Look at this turnaround.
Yeah, hopefully the other growth stocks follow. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. Even Roblox is like up in the green now again. They've been looking pretty good today. I'm glad to see it. NVDA, Mike, that's actually a really good sign if NVDA is able to get it back up in the green. It looks like AMD is even following along up a little bit as well. Let's check out some of these growth stocks. Maybe we're seeing a bit of a turnaround. I know AI has been a huge one, and they started selling off again this morning. And, hey, over the past few minutes, they're coming back up, which is great to see. I know let's go check out like DraftKings, our favorite. And yeah, it looks like even they're coming back up. It seems like everything's popping back up as of the past, 3 or 5 minutes. But, with everything moving together, it kind of sucks because in the end, if it starts to fall, then everything's going to fall again. So
Yeah.
It seems like everything's moving in sympathy with each other. I just wanted to point that out.
For sure. All right, so we have Mike saying, could this be the start of a crash/recession? So generally, like, to have a crash or recession, there has to be, like, crazy world-changing news. However, this can be the start of a pullback. Like, one thing to keep in mind is, like, I know that certain stocks, especially, like, growth stocks, are down huge amounts, and, like, the growth stocks, like, they basically crash, like if you're looking at Palantir or DraftKings or any growth company, Zoom, they're down significantly and those stocks crash. But the market itself is actually very, very close to all-time highs. And when you zoom out, the market itself is up over 20% this year. So, like, what's crazy to think about is, like, the market can easily fall down to, like, this SPY can easily fall down to like 430 and still be up still over 10% on the year, which is still a crazy year. So it's like this can easily be the start of a pullback, but a crash to a recession is pretty unlikely unless some like crazy, unexpected, horrible news came out.
Yeah, and one other thing to keep in mind is like it also depends on like how you're classifying like what is a crash or a recession. I'll be honest, Mike, like I see a bunch of traders all over the place saying the market's crashing on a day like today. You know what I mean? Like honestly, some people think today is a crash. So I don't know, I guess it just depends on how you look at it. But I know that there is some actual specifics out there, like what defines a recession. And I think it's like a 15% pullback or something. Do you know the exact number, Mike?
I'm looking up the examples right now. Let's see. I'm actually just trying because I actually wanted to get the exact threshold so I could show it. Let's see. Stock market crash. Trying to get the exact number. Like they're always like explaining like the consequences of a stock market crash, but they're not they're not giving me the number. Hold on. Let's see. Percentage. Let's see. All right. Okay. Perfect. So there is no numerically specific definition of a stock market crash, but the term commonly applies to declines of over 10% in a stock market index. Over a period of several days or weeks, you can say. So a 10% drop is what we have. So keep that in mind.
Okay, definitely. So I think honestly, like with all the inflation stuff going on, like I know you said it would take like some world-changing news. Some might argue maybe the inflation is enough world-changing news to justify only a 10% drop. We've been honestly going up quite a bit, like a 10%. Like it's not, to me, that wouldn't even be a crash. That would almost be more of just a healthy pullback here, in my opinion. Like honestly, like if we fall 10%, we'll still be up quite a bit over the year, which is good news, so that's always a good sign. But it's just still though, like in the end, it's just like one might argue, do you think that these inflation numbers are enough to justify a crash? I don't know. Personally, I guess the market's going to have to decide. It's going to be a highly debated topic for sure, but I just don't know, Mike. Like I feel like it might be, but in the end, like obviously the inflation numbers are the highest since like 1982, I read, but still though, sometimes higher inflation helps the market.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing. And then Hunter said, I thought it was GDP related for recession, but maybe not. Yeah, I thought so. Like I knew crash was like a threshold, like we just pointed out. But I'm with you. I thought the recession was like with GDP or like something like that. So good stuff there. Vicky said crash happens every 6 years, corrections every 2 years, and pullbacks every year. And then Mike said should have kept my UVXY. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that you didn't. Keep in mind like UVXY is extremely hard to time. Like or like if you just look at the chart, like Tom, can you just show like a daily chart or something with this one? It just goes down basically all the time. So like most of the time, UVXY is a losing investment, and even if we do have like a crash or like a significant pullback, you can always re-enter, and there's other ways to hedge yourself. Like honestly, like if we did have a crash, some of these put options on stocks will pay off a lot more than UVXY. But either way, there will be opportunity, and it never hurts to re-enter if you wanted to. Vicky said yes, recession is GDP related. So yeah, I mean, good stuff. As of right now, like Tom pointed out, like we are starting to see some stocks jump back up a little bit, which is relieving to see, but we're still definitely in the red.
Yeah, we are. And, it's good to see these stocks coming back. We just need to see them come back up. Of course, I think for the rest of the day today, of course, the market's only been open here for about, 25 minutes so far. So hopefully we can see some good movement coming back. But I'm really glad to see Tesla coming back up. I hope that drags up some of the EVs. If I go look at like NIO, they're still getting beaten down pretty hard. So, it looks like they might not have a good chance to come back with Tesla, but I'm hoping to see the rest of the stocks do it. And Mike, some of these value stocks have been on fire the past few days, like KO, and they're actually holding their ground pretty well today. Moving slow as usual, but it looks like they are starting to slow down a little bit after having these amazing weeks.
True. I mean, they kind of have to. I mean, they've been exploding, and it's hard for stocks like KO or Johnson and Johnson or Pepsi or Procter and Gamble to move the way they have been.
Yeah, it really is. I've been honestly really surprised to see some of these moving like this. Like Procter and Gamble, it honestly broke this double top here right around like 146 to 147, and then had a really explosive move up all the way up to like 161 within just a couple weeks. And that's pretty good for a slow moving value stock like that. That's actually an awesome move. And like J&J is another one that's been on fire, and KO, and they've all been flying up over the past few weeks, which I think has been a really good thing to see. And one stock that I feel like would be going up if it wouldn't have had all the issues over the past couple of years is Boeing. You know what I mean? Like, man, we've been seeing Boeing unfortunately continue to get beat down, and I've been looking for a longer term entry on Boeing, and unfortunately they just keep having these bad moves. And I thought today maybe they would start to go up a little bit, but it looks like they're continuing to fall.
Yeah. Alrighty. Yeah, I mean, Lucid's still bleeding, Rivian's still bleeding. It looks pretty rough. Like for like anyone who's holding, like especially Rivian, like if you look back on the chart, the other week it was at 180. Now it's at like 93. It just made a brand new low. And I'm not feeling good about this one at all with everything that's happening right now. Like they can do great in the long term. Like their vehicle looks really cool. It looks awesome, but just the stock itself is like, I don't know. It's not looking too good.
Yeah, it's rough. I will say I like the vehicle, like you said. I think it looks really cool. I think everything sounds good about it. But right now, this earnings report, like I know, Mike, we were talking about this one in private a little bit. Like, man, I really thought that Rivian would come in with a bad earnings here. Like it's just they were almost set to have a bad earnings. Like if you think about it, like they just started deliveries on their vehicles, I believe, at the very end of this year. So honestly, they wouldn't really have too many good numbers to report. And it looks like out of the small vehicles that they were supposed to deliver, they still ended up missing it by like 25%. So, it came in bad. They were already going to have like bad numbers, and then that even came in even worse. So yeah, I think it's just a bad setup for them. Unfortunately, they had some bad news, I think, at the wrong time too. Like, unfortunately, the timing's bad for them as well. Like if, for example, if they were at 179 and this news came out, and then they started coming back down, the drop might be a little bit more justified. But right now, I think investors are going to get pretty scared, Mike. And like let's go look at some of these other stocks, like Rivian, or I mean like Lucid, Mike. Lucid had a huge move in the beginning. Like let's go to the 1 year daily. Man, look at these guys. They flew up to 64, and look at how low they got, all the way down to like $19, even $16 almost at the low. Like, man, like honestly, seeing this type of drop out of Lucid in the beginning, I could see a pretty big fall out of Rivian too, like even more than what we've seen so far.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so looking at the positive side of things, some of these companies are looking pretty good today. I think Zoom looks awesome. Teladoc's been looking good. Gold is looking pretty good. Like if we look at, there actually is some decent movement today, like we talked about.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Zoom is looking awesome, Mike. Like, man, on this daily chart, I am so tempted to like get some leaps or just go in with a lot of shares right now. I'll be honest, this is looking very good. They're double bottoming at 175. And even if you get shares, you don't have to worry about the time then. Even if it continues to go a little bit lower, fine. I'm just going to keep holding it for the next year or two. But, in the end, I think it's looking so good, like on a technical level. That double bottom's great. The way it held its ground yesterday and is starting to break out today is awesome. It's now up 3.2%, continuing to run. Man, we've been eyeing this one up for a long time, and I think it might finally be time for time to enter here at the bottom.
Yeah, I think it looks awesome. Like not only for the short term, but like especially for the long term, they're probably not going anywhere. And I feel like out of all the companies we talk about as like growth plays, I feel like Zoom is the safest in the sense that like so many people use Zoom. I mean, we're on Zoom right now. We use it all the time, and schools use it, courts use it, like businesses use it. Like it's you know what I mean? Like it's needed. It's used by everyone all over the world, and like they're one of the leading companies, and they have some of the largest market share for these online video conferences. And I was actually watching, I don't know if it was on CNBC or a different like financial news network, but it was Zoom's CEO like talking about potential metaverse opportunities as well too. Like I feel like this is another one that like it has potential to like adapt and become like a lot more than what it is today. Like obviously like they have an amazing business right now. Their numbers have been pretty great, and like I feel like they have a lot of opportunity. They're in a great space, and I'm really really excited to see how they do over the next couple years, but especially over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. And you know what? Whenever I'm looking at this stock, Mike, like you said, they've been having good numbers and stuff. Like, look at these EPS numbers. They had a positive EPS beating the estimate. Their revenue came in slightly below the estimate, but it was still up year over year by quite a bit. And then we have stocks like Rivian out here coming in with negative 12 EPSs, and people are still backing them up. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like we're seeing some crazy stuff as far as stocks falling based on like earnings and all that type of stuff. Like obviously there's just so many like mixed opinions and different outlooks and this and that. But in the end, I feel like Zoom's like one of the more reputable companies. And the good thing that I really like, man, like honestly, like I've been seeing a lot of stocks like that, like DraftKings, for example, where you could almost justify the drop. Like they had some bad earnings. They did miss that Entain deal. Like they had a couple things happen that might justify the drop. Of course, Zoom's going to be losing a little bit of customers as COVID goes away, but I'll tell you what, their revenue and EPS was still looking pretty good. And man, I think they still have some good potential for the longer term. And, if this Omicron variant gets bad, I mean, that could even help them out.
Yeah, and then Hunter said that Zoom has better fundamentals than a lot of growth stocks by far. Absolutely. And then Hunter also said that he thinks Microsoft is going to eat a lot of their market share if they don't adapt. And that is a slight concern for me. I definitely agree with that as well. And then Vicky said that Zoom will be the unified communication company of the future. They were founded way before COVID. And yeah, I mean, the fact that they they already had like they had a good start before COVID came along, and then when the world shut down, like that just boosted them up. Like if you just look back at their stock chart for like, I guess you could say like the past 2 or 3 years, like when COVID hit, that was go time for Zoom. Like I know they were trading for, what was it? They were trading for like, I guess you could say like $89 in February of 2020. And then like around, you could say October of 2020, they went all the way up to 588. And now we have the opportunity to buy them at 188. So I feel like it's at a pretty good level, and their numbers are still good, like Tom was talking about. Like they're posting good earnings, they're beating analyst estimates, they're beating their own estimates. Like they had a 1.1 EPS in the most recent quarter. But then again, there are still some concerns, with the, I guess you could say, the world reopening, which isn't really too much of a major concern for me, because I feel like the world has fundamentally changed in the sense that now a lot of people work from home. A lot of like at least courts are done online now through Zoom. Not all of them, of course. Schooling, at least some of it is done through Zoom, and the world has changed. But then, like Hunter suggested, if they don't adapt, Microsoft can really eat into their market share, which would be a concern.
Yeah, they can. And there's even been a lot of smaller startup companies trying to get into this as well. I know that it's not just Microsoft. Of course, there's other stuff out there too. And I know Zoom's the bigger one, but I feel like as this continues on, there's going to be more and more companies try to come out. So hopefully Zoom keeps innovating. I know that at least from what I've seen, Mike, their platform seems fairly unchanged for the past couple of years. And of course they've been updating stuff here and there and fixing code and all that stuff. But there hasn't been too many big things come out on it yet. And hopefully, like you said, if there's some metaverse opportunity or something, that might be all they need maybe to get some hype back.
Yep. Either way, they're a solid company. And I'm very excited for them. And then we have Freddie saying, thoughts on crowd starter position, CRWD. Let's take a look. CRWD, they're a solid company. They're at a good level. Let me just look at the chart a little bit more. Let me zoom out. I do like them right now. They have support right around 200, and they're just below that. They have some more support right around 185. I don't mind them for a starter position. I think now is a pretty good time to dollar cost average for some shares.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that'll be pretty good for CRWD. I've been liking this company for the past few years. It's been a pretty good tech stock, and I like it, Mike. It's just that it's been on this downtrend. If we continue to see the growth stocks fall, then I think that CRWD will probably fall down with it. But, if the market starts to shoot back up, then I think CRWD will obviously go up with it. It's just I think this one will probably depend more on what's happening with the overall market. But I will say this one's had some very nice growth this year and the past few years. So it's been looking like a pretty good stock to buy.
Exactly. All right. And then we have Iranical saying, did you see Bitcoin? No, I actually haven't been watching Bitcoin today, at least. Let's see. Give me 1 second. I definitely want to see it because I like monitoring it. But oh wow, it's not looking too good. We're actually just below 46K right now. It's not looking too good. Let me check out Ethereum. Yeah, it looks like Bitcoin and Ethereum are selling off a bit, which is unfortunate to see.
Yeah, I'll tell you on the daily for Bitcoin, it's not looking good to me. I could see this one starting to slide off a little bit more. It looks like it's kind of in that a sliding off type of setup here. It's obviously it's having almost like a staircase to the downside. Lots of it'll have 2 green days followed by 1 huge red day, and then 2 small green days followed by a couple big red days. And it seems like it's just slowly, progressively going lower. Hopefully, we start to hit an uptrend pretty soon. I see a pretty big support coming up around right around 44,000 even. So hopefully we can bounce around that, or maybe even 40,000 after that.
Yep. And then Hunter said that Skype was around before COVID, and they didn't adapt, and they got bodied by Zoom and Microsoft Teams.
Dude,
hopefully
that is
Zoom
so
comes
funny,
out
Mike.
with what?
That is so funny. I actually was Googling Skype stock symbol already.
Oh my gosh.
That's so funny. And I found out they were bought by Microsoft.
Gosh. So anyways, Hunter said Skype was around before COVID and they didn't adapt and they got bodied by Zoom and Microsoft Teams. So hopefully Zoom comes out with some cool stuff to put them on top for sure. And then Hunter said that he actually took a class and it was on Skype and he couldn't believe it. I was just looking at the Google Trends for Skype. Anyways, they had a pretty nice, it looks like they really peaked in 2009 and 2010. And ever since then, their search trends have just been going down and down and down and down. They just totally fell off the board. It's kind of, I guess it's a lesson that you just got to adapt, And I think Zoom can do a pretty good job at doing that, but it's definitely a risk with holding them. But I think they should be good.
Man, I remember Skype used to be so big back in the day. And, whenever we started talking about this today, I started looking up their stock symbol and I found out that, they were owned by Microsoft. I didn't know that, but, that's very interesting to see because Microsoft Teams, I'll be honest, I don't know about you, Mike. Have you ever used Skype?
Skype? Oh yeah, I used it like years ago. Like I haven't touched it
Yeah.
in a while.
Yeah, I haven't touched it in forever either. It was something I used almost back in like 2008, 2010, like around those times. And man, I remember it used to be so cool to like use this. And I thought it was honestly a pretty good platform. Like I thought the way it was set up was pretty good. Like it looked good, it appealed well, it sounded good. I honestly thought it was a pretty good platform. And if Microsoft Teams, like I know that Microsoft Teams is or business or whatever that what's their meeting stuff called? Microsoft meetings or Teams or
Microsoft Teams.
Microsoft Teams. It's like a tongue twister there, but yeah, in the end, I think that if Teams, starts to take some of the stuff that Skype had, I think they could have some pretty good growth themselves. I think that Skype was a pretty good platform personally, but like you said, it's just something that really faded out, to be honest. Like it seems like honestly, like Zoom and all these companies are almost like a direct copy of Skype.
Yeah, so I'm just like looking at like some of the market share comparisons between these video call platforms. It looks like I mean, obviously the data is different for each company that looks at it, but it looks like Zoom has a total market share in 2021 of like 48.7%, and then Google Meetings has like 21.8%, Microsoft Teams has 14.5%, Skype with like 6.6%, and then there's like Slack with like 3.6%. So Zoom looks to be on top by like a pretty good margin, but Google Meet and Microsoft Teams are definitely competitors, and it's not like they're these no-name companies. Like we're talking about Google and Microsoft, like arguably some of the like most powerful, most innovative companies in the market.
Yeah, that's actually pretty crazy to see. I forgot about Google's, to be honest. Like I didn't I honestly forgot about that one because I know that Microsoft's has been a little bit more, I think popular in my opinion at least. But man, it's been a crazy few years with these video companies, and honestly, like it just it goes to show you how good of companies Google and Microsoft are. Like, man, like what does Microsoft have? Like honestly, like they got Windows 11, they have this Teams, they have a whole bunch of stuff. Let alone, and then they just keep innovating and doing all this other stuff as well, like the servers and cloud systems and all that stuff. Like these companies are so good, and for them to even get into this is, I think it just goes to show how much of innovators and powerhouses they truly are.
Yep. All right. So then we have N saying, random question, guys. How do you feel about PayPal for maybe March calls? I don't love it for calls, but I wouldn't mind getting shares of them. My problem is just like the current sentiment in the market, and then it's like, let's say you get March calls. Right now, the implied volatility is 43%. So if we went out to the chain, right now the stock's at 185. So it's like an at-the-money call will cost you around $1,600. So then your break-even price is like 201. And then like let's say you didn't want to pay $1,600 today. Like let's say you just bought the 200 strike calls for March. It'll still cost you around $1,000. Your break-even would be at like $210. It's just like, I'd rather not have the break even all the way at 210. I would rather just buy the shares at 185, and if it rises, just be able to sell at 210 if I wanted to. It's just like it's easier to profit, and then two, you're not limited by time. Like let's say the market crashes or the stock tanks or whatever, or let's say the stock just consolidates. Like that call will get screwed over big time, where your shares will actually make money. The downside, though, is that you don't have the leverage. But then again, it's like if you really wanted the leverage, you can use margin. But even if you didn't, there's no need to be greedy. You know what I mean? So I just like it for shares better.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for shares. I think that, it could be good for some leaps too, or some longer term options. But of course, you're going to need that movement fast. Like if we're, like if we go like look at something like Zoom, for example, it's kind of double bottoming here at like the 175 support. And this might be a good time for some leaps or some options because it might, finally start to go on that uptrend. And the thing you're looking for is that timing. And, you're kind of gambling, that's what it is. You're kind of gambling that it's going to go up fast. And that's what you're going to do if you get those options. And I would say shares is going to be a lot safer. maybe if you see it double bottom around this 180 support and it starts to go back up here and maybe start to go on an uptrend and you notice something, maybe you can get it at a better time and time it up right. But I would just do what Mike said and get some shares, and lots of people, they always act like they can't make a high percentage on some shares. But like, I'll be honest, like if you could just, I mean, I know this might be a lot of money for some people, but like if you threw $5,000 into PayPal and then it goes up, 50% over the next couple of years, and this doesn't even have to go to new highs. If it even just comes back up and retests like 280, you'll be up 50%, and you can make like $2,500 off your $5,000, or let's say you put 10 grand on it, then you're making 5,000. If it's obviously the more you put on, the more you're going to make. That's just how the stock market works. But in the end, the shares can make quite a bit as well.
But like another thing too is, and like I don't encourage using like margin like this too, but let's say you only had 2 grand. A lot of these brokers nowadays, like it's pretty easy to borrow the money. So like if you had like 2 grand, you can trade like 4,000 worth of shares, and then if you buy put options, you can protect yourself. So like let's say with PayPal, if you put in 4,000 and the stock is currently at 185, 4,000 divided by 185, that's like 21 shares. So what you can do is you would, if you had $2,000 in the account, you use margin. Let's say you put like 4,000 into the PayPal shares. You buy a put option, so no matter what, you're protected to the downside. And then if the stock pops up, you can still have a great return. Like the point is that there's a lot of ways to play PayPal to the upside besides using call options that are not priced well. Like you can get really creative when it comes to options, but sometimes it's just better to go with shares. And if you do decide to use margin, you can still get that leverage you desire, and you can also protect yourself by buying a put. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good way to look at it, Mike. And, it's just one of those things as well. Like it just comes down to the timing of it. Like the shares are always going to be safer, like in the end, no matter what you do, you can always hold them. If PayPal keeps going down, you'll be fine. And if you get the calls, you might get forced out of it or something. It's just, it's the name of the game. But, that's why shares are a lot better in some cases. Like I honestly, like I've been buying up a lot of shares down here, Mike. Like we've been looking at a lot of these stocks, like of course, like DraftKings, I mean, CRSR, Corsair actually has been bouncing very nicely off this $20 support. It's kind of double bottoming like Zoom is, Mike. This one actually is another huge one I think everyone should throw on the radar.
Awesome company, in my opinion. Like there's so many great deals right now. Whether, we always talk about the same stocks like DraftKings and that, but like even Zoom, maybe Teladoc, maybe Upwork, Corsair, Redfin. Like there's so many opportunities right now where it's hard not to buy the dip. Chewy's a great one I really like. Spotify is pretty good. Like so many great opportunities right now.
Yeah, there is. And honestly, Upwork is having a pretty big support down here, right around $30 even. Looks like they're getting pretty close to their support and moving back up. But man, as far as stocks moving today, Mike, a lot of people have been discounting AMC lately, but man, look at this. AMC is actually kind of bouncing back up off the $20 support. I'm not saying it's going to go up forever, but it looks like it's kind of breaking out today.
Yeah, well, that's good at least. I mean, it's been pretty rough lately, as a lot of stocks have been. So it's good that it's at least holding its ground.
Yeah, I might have actually lied, Mike, because I didn't see the pre-market. I was looking at the daily chart, and I wasn't able to see the pre-market movement of yesterday. So instead of breaking out, it's actually kind of double topping here at 26. So maybe if it breaks above 26, we'll see a nice breakout.
There we go. So checking back in on the market overall, it's not looking good. Like we're actually bleeding a decent amount. The SPY's tanking lower, and like even Apple's really struggling. The VIX is popping. Bank stocks are struggling. It's not looking good. Like the SPY just keeps going.
It does, and I'll be honest, Mike, like once we broke 460 to the downside, I just really saw a sell-off coming in. Like I think that was such a big support. And once we broke that, I could really see this one keep going. And honestly, I could see it keep going down even today. If we go back on like the 90-day, 5-minute, I'm going to try to find some decent support levels here to the downside. But, it's going to be hard to find because we've just, we've been up here for so long now. But yeah, I would say definitely now that we broke below 460, that's going to be huge. the next major level I'm going to eye up is 455. I think that's going to be a huge support down here. And then below 455, I'm definitely going to look at 450 after that. But I think 455 could be pretty achievable even by the end of today, possibly.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah, hopefully. There's a lot of selling pressure, and like if we see like Apple, for example, if we see Apple break their low of this morning, then I think it's going to be a pretty big possibility. But if we see Apple and some of these stocks start to turn back up, like if you guys are playing some SPY puts and you start to see these turn up, you might want to look at exiting those just in case. Like if these ones start to go up, the chances of the market going up are going to be pretty high.
Yep. Alrighty. So, I mean, the only stocks that I'm really seeing like good momentum with the upside are like Zoom and Teladoc today. Besides that, it's just it's really weak out there. So what that tells us is, in terms of opportunity today, there's a lot of opportunity to the downside, whether it's puts, whether it's shorting shares, maybe buying the dip for the long term. And then if you wanted to play stocks to the upside, you'll probably want to look at some of these COVID stocks. Like even Teladoc is doing pretty well. It's up 5%.
Yeah, it's doing pretty good. It is pulling back over the past like 2 minutes, but it had a very good morning. It recovered up, and it easily could have kept selling off. Like we saw plenty of stocks continue to do that today. So I'm really glad they held their ground and continued to, stay up like this. I'm glad to see that. As far as stocks to the upside, it's going to be hard to play them up. Like if the SPY keeps selling off, even if we do see Zoom continue up, like it might continue up a lot slower. Like if the SPY was green, Zoom might be up like 6%. Who knows? Like there might be a lot bigger of a move going on. So always be careful. It kind of looks like they're bouncing off that like 190 resistance. And then Mike, actually one stock that started to fall off pretty big that I'm kind of glad we took profits on is Oracle. Man, they had a huge move to the downside this morning after getting rejected at that resistance yesterday.
True that. All right, and then we have Iranical saying, thank you for the great video. Thoughts on SE, fundamental and technical. So I did not do a deep dive into their fundamentals, but so I'll look at them on a technical level. They're really, really close to that $200 support. If you wanted to get them for the long term, I think that's fine. They're not my favorite play in the market, but I think the best move would just be like dollar cost averaging right around that like $200 support.
Yeah, that support I think is going to be the biggest thing to look at, especially over the next few days. And I'll tell you that implied volatility is starting to fly up, Mike. Like we might be seeing a pretty good move soon out of this one. And lots of stocks have been moving up off these bottom levels lately. Zoom's starting to form a good bottom. Corsair is starting to form support. And if we see these stocks form and start to bounce off supports, then I think SE has a good chance. But I like you said, we haven't done a deep dive into the fundamentals on it. I will say though, they're not profitable. Their last EPS came in worse than expected, and it was also negative by quite a bit. So that's not the best. But keep in mind, they were running up for 2 years straight with some crazy growth while having that negative EPS too. So while we haven't done a deep dive, they're not profitable, but they're just another growth stock. Like of course, like DraftKings has a negative EPS, and even Tesla had a negative EPS until like last year.
Yep. All right, so Tom, do you have any last minute stocks, options, or anything for the rest of the week?
Man, it's going to be tough. Today's a tough one. The SPY is falling below support. I think that we could see a continued sell-off today. We're already down though quite a bit. I think we might see a sell-off down towards like 455 or something like that. I just, the SPY has really broken a big support, I think, at 460. So I'm going to really eye that up. If we're able to get back up above 460, then I'm not really going to look at it too much anymore. But, if we're able to break back below 458, I think that the main way to go today is just going to be like a nice day trade. It is Friday, so we're going to have unfortunately, it's going to be a bloody end of this week, but hopefully next week we get a lot more good sentiment coming back into the market, and hopefully we get some more good momentum. I hate seeing all these up and down days. I just want the market to pick a direction.
Exactly. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. The market is getting pretty crazy. We're seeing a lot of upwards and downwards movement, so we're definitely in for a wild day. But thank you guys so much for watching, and have an amazing rest of the day.